Good day, everyone. My name is Enki, with RammWikiTV. We've broken down quite a lot over these past months, with the two-part Tacheles discussion, the description of the Herzeleid rough mixes tape, and the solutions to the mysteries of Zadist and Tiefergelegt. And then, most recently, came the latest information about the untitled instrumental. I'd like to keep up with the emphasis on the time period before the release of Herzeleid, but today I'd like to cover a subject more generally, and more beginner and new fan friendly. So, this one's going to be a full overview of Rammstein's known demo tapes. Usually, in these videos I assume a certain level of prior knowledge of the subject on the listener's part, like that you will already be familiar with the general timeline of events that took place prior to the band's official commercial debut. In this video, though, I want to take the time to start from the very bottom and work my way up. So, let's begin. Rammstein first fully formed in 1994, with the first album, Herzeleid, coming in 1995. However, prior to this, the band was still very active, playing many shows in small clubs and producing a large number of demo tapes, which were cassettes of rough, unfinished material that were sent out for promotional purposes, given to friends, or produced for internal uses. These tapes are the source of many of the band's studio demos that are available to the public. They are a valuable glimpse into Rammstein's songwriting process. They preserve many musical elements that were cut from the final releases, even including full songs that never saw the light of day. Demos from other album eras tend to be extremely rare, because demo tapes like the ones made leading up to Herzeleid stopped being produced. But thankfully for Herzeleid, there is no shortage of these demo tapes. Because there are so many, with new ones popping up every now and then, we differentiate them by track length and order of release, since they generally don't have actual names or titles. The very first known demo tape is referred to in the community as the 4-track demo, or otherwise the Temple Prayers tape. The 4-track tape is in a weird situation. There are very few sources, and they contain conflicting information. But we do know a couple of things with some confidence. This tape was created right at the beginning of 1994, and it was sent into a contest called Metrobeat in February. Metrobeat was a sort of battle of the bands type competition. Competing bands would send a tape of their music, and many also showed up to a physical event to perform. Whether Rammstein actually performed there themselves is not clear. At the time, Rammstein was a 4-piece, consisting of Till, Richard, Olli, and Schneider. And they weren't called Rammstein, but Temple Prayers, according to the Motor Music website. The tape was recorded under crude household circumstances, not professionally in a studio as their later tapes would be. Up to this point, there is still a very common misconception that this tape was recorded entirely in English. However, this is not exactly true. The tape's tracklist was only just recently confirmed, and it turned out to contain Rammstein, Der Seemann, White Flesh, and Tiefergelegt, which is now more readily known as Jeder lacht. All songs on this tape already had German lyrics, with the only exception being White Flesh, Weißes Fleisch, which was translated to German not long after the band sent the 4-track demo into the contest, which they went on to win. They won some time, anywhere from 1 day to a week depending on who you ask, in a professional studio, specifically Beat Studio, to re-record their demo professionally. This conveniently brings us to the 5-track demo, which is most likely what they recorded at Beat Studio with their awarded studio time. We've never been able to find the 4-track demo, but we have released a rip of this 5-track tape. Consequently, the demos on this tape are the earliest Rammstein recordings of any kind that are available to the public. It has new versions of all the 4-track tape songs, plus the first appearance of Das alte Leid. The tape features the band's most archaic art style, showing off their first ever logo and Germanic runes in place of the more familiar Rammstein lettering. These elements would hardly ever be seen again, even in 1994. The R in the Rammstein lettering, which was also the logo itself, appears to be a made-up symbol, with the rest of the lettering being actual runes from a Futhark alphabet. Interestingly, Das alte Leid appears to have been misspelled on the track list as Das alte Lied, though I suppose there is some possibility that they actually meant to do that. The previous owner of this particular tape told us that he received it to promote the concert on May 6th, 1994 at the Anka venue in Leipzig, which likely means he received the tape in late April or early May 1994. Actually, he received 2 copies of the tape. The original one, with all the artwork that you see in all the pictures, unfortunately had audio dropouts in some places, so he told the band this, and they gave him a replacement copy on a generic tape with no artwork. He also told us that he played the demo of Das alte Leid on his radio show, which would make that the earliest Rammstein radio appearance yet known. While recording this tape at Beat Studio, the band discovered that by dampening the 1 kHz frequencies, they could really emphasize the guitars in the mix, and this contributes to the core of their early sound. The most noteworthy thing about this tape, however, is the song Jeder lacht, which was never widely known to have been on any demo tapes up until a few years ago. Though of course I later learned of its presence on the 4-track, much to my shock. A 1-minute snippet of this studio version in low quality has been floating around online since the mid to late 2000s, but the source for the real, full version was generally unknown until as recently as 2019. Several fake studio versions were floating around that were commonly believed to be real, but the actual, real studio version of Jeder lacht that doesn't cut off after 1 minute was once considered to be one of Rammstein's top rarities. It, along with the rest of the 5-track tape's contents, finally became available for everyone towards the latter half of 2019. Being able to freely listen to the whole thing is still one of the most surreal, strange experiences in the world. It is unbelievable how rare this once was. This next demo tape in the timeline is the first of the 6-track demos, and also the strangest. The way the story about this goes is that this was a tape created by Richard and given to a friend of his. It has 6 Rammstein songs on the A-side, and some amount of Orgasm Death Gimmick songs on the B-side, Orgasm Death Gimmick being one of Richard's previous bands. The first 5 tracks are identical to the 5-track tape, but when you do get to that 6th track, you will be confronted by the untitled instrumental. This tape and this weird, unknown song were first widely known about in 2019, when my first introduction to it was its description as an emotional, mid-tempo instrumental with the baby voice sample from Mutter included in it somewhere. We have an entire separate video on this channel specifically dedicated to discussing that song, but, long story short, we were able to figure out that not only does it sound like it can be an early instrumental demo of Mutter, but that's exactly what it is. It was amazing. It was a surprise that Mutter dated back to as far as 1994, and that a song like this instrumental could go undiscovered for nearly 25 years is just spectacular. The next tape to talk about is 3-track Demo 1. This one was mostly generic looking, with the only identifying feature being a sticker on the tape's plastic case with a group photo of the band and a phone number. This tape features Das alte Leid, now being called by its working title Hallo Hallo, and the first appearances of Feuerräder and Schwarzes Glas in the demo timeline, which were likely newly written songs when this tape was created. Right now, I want to assume that the demos on this tape are the same versions as the ones that appeared on another tape I'm about to talk about. But since we've never been able to listen to a rip of this particular 3-track cassette, we can't rule out that these songs may actually be different, previously unknown versions. Specifically, there is a noteworthy possibility that Hallo Hallo may have been a crude live in studio recording, like the first known versions of Feuerräder and Schwarzes Glas were. Getting right on back to the 6-track family, we have 6-track Demo 2. This tape has been known about for quite some time. The band even shows it on their website, but it wasn't until relatively recently that we were able to track down and rip an actual copy. The track list has Feuerräder, which is in its live studio demo version I mentioned earlier, the very same that was released on Engel Fan Edition, then Hallo Hallo, Weißes Fleisch, Rammstein, and Schwarzes Glas. Some copies also had Seemann, known at the time as Matrose. Weißes Fleisch is the exact same demo as on the 5-track tape, and Hallo Hallo and Rammstein are almost the same, with the only difference being that these are shorter edits. But where this tape really shines is Schwarzes Glas. Before this tape came around, the only studio version of Schwarzes Glas that was available was a completely different recording, and it cut off at the start of the guitar solo. This tape, however, had a previously unknown recording of the song, done live in studio style like Feuerräder, and it revealed the entire song, guitar solo and the end, for the very first time. It was an earth-shattering discovery, just like Jede Lacht was. This tape was the first since the 5-track to have an inlay with full artwork, though technically the main image of the band here is a sticker and not actually printed on the J-card, which also bore the contact information of their new manager at the time, Emanuel Fialik. I hope you're not tired of demo tapes yet, because there's still quite a few left. 3-track Demo 2 is our next one, which is one of the more minor tapes in the chronology. It offers the same demo versions of Hallo Hallo, Rammstein, and Weißes Fleisch that we are already familiar with, just with some minor length differences in the former two. The most notable thing about this tape is that the cassette is actually a DAT, a digital audio tape, meaning it is a digital source rather than an analog source, which provides us with higher quality versions of these demos than we would otherwise get to have. And so, we reach the next stage of Rammstein's demo tapes. By now, they've been signed to the label Motor Music, and they take over production of Rammstein's future tapes, starting with this one, 3-track Demo 3. This tape brings us the first known studio version of Du riechst so gut, here called Der Riecher, and then familiar demos of Rammstein and Seemann. The next known tape in the timeline is 6-track Demo 3, which is perhaps their most famous. Tapes like this one were sent out to promote the upcoming release of Herzeleid, and to facilitate the booking of concert venues for the following tour. Rips of this tape have been available online for God knows how long, and the demo versions on this tape are by far the most well-known among fans, since many of the other major developments in the history of Rammstein demo tapes have happened relatively recently. The track list is classic. It has all the same demos that we've already encountered multiple times by now, Der Riecher, Hallo Hallo, Weißes Fleisch, Rammstein and Seemann, all in familiar versions, but in between Rammstein and Seemann comes a brand new recording of Schwarzes Glas. Although, if you were in the community following the events as they originally unfolded, you would consider this to be the original version of Schwarzes Glas. This is the most well-known demo of the song, and formerly the only studio demo of the song. It's a much more proper studio version, but it fades out and ends right at the beginning of the guitar solo. Because this was all we had of the song for a long time, and no live bootlegs of the 1994 version ever surfaced back then, it was a complete mystery to us what the guitar solo actually sounded like. and how the song really ended. It was absolutely legendary when we finally got to answer these questions with 6-track Demo 2 and its version of the song. This tape is also interesting for having 3 official variants. One version with the standard artwork, another that uses Xerox copies of the standard artwork, and another with a completely different font and text format. The position in the timeline of this next tape isn't super clear, but I'm just going to safely assume that it comes somewhere vaguely around this point. I'm talking about the 1-track tape, the most recent addition to the demo tape family, which contains what is quite possibly the most legendary Herzeleid demo of all. The studio version of the 1994 demo of Tia, which yes, does exist, called Zadist at the time this tape was made in 1995. The song was played live many times, but extremely few recordings of it exist. Only 2 live bootlegs of it are available online. We simply call them the Saalfeld and Schlettwein concerts. And getting just that second one took nearly 20 years. Until then, the only record of this Zadist song was just the Saalfeld show, and in very low quality. Most people didn't even believe it was ever recorded in the studio at all, but it was. It has programmed drums, and it is on this tape. Other than that, there isn't that much to say about the tape. There may have even been more than 1 track, but we just don't know. And that keeps me up at night like you wouldn't believe. And finally, we reach the last tape that we currently know of. Though this one isn't, strictly speaking, a demo tape. With this, we begin to enter the territory of Vorabkassetten, which are advanced tapes that contain non-demo material. These are beyond the scope of this video, but this particular tape is worth mentioning here. It's the famous 6 rough mixes / 3 mixes tape. We already have a full episode just on this one, so I won't go into detail as much. This tape is the first release to feature the songs Laichzeit, Asche, Herzeleid, and Heirate mich. Feuerrede is here too, and although it was available on other demo tapes before, this one is a new version, nearly finished, recorded during the sessions for Herzeleid. This is another monumental discovery on par with Voll Schwarzes Glas and Jede lacht. But again, I have an hour-long monstrosity of a video specifically dedicated to this topic if you're interested. The remaining songs on this tape, Seemann, Fleisch, Hallo Hallo, and Rammstein, are all new studio recordings, appearing here for the first time, all in unfinished form. And there you have it. This was my hopefully coherent general overview of Rammstein's demo tapes for those looking to get their feet wet in the demo world. From here, I'd encourage you to go ahead and actually listen to the tapes on this list that we've uploaded. Maybe give a listen to Schlettwein and Saalfeld while you're at it, and keep spiraling further and further into the very same black hole that has consumed my entire existence. I'm not that great at outros, so thanks guys, and take care.